history of Judaism rather than the kind of the spiritual aspect of it. So, who put the Alter Rebbe in prison?
You could say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through his emissaries, the human beings, who concocted a claim that he was a traitor to the Tsar.
So during this time, there was a big argument going on within Yiddishkeit with the two different philosophies, right? There was correct. On one side you had the Alter Rebbe and the Hasidim, and the dominating Judaism that was happening in the time was by the Vilna Gaon.
That is
and
correct.
The Vilna Gaon, who was the leading kind of rabbi
at that time.
And there was a lot of kind of trouble happening, and then what ended up happening was the followers of the Vilna Gaon came to the Hasidim, and they basically it got so violent that the followers of the Vilna Gaon, the Jews, the followers of the Vilna Gaon, ended up pushing to have the Alter Rebbe imprisoned. So this was not the Russians. This wasn't some strangers. It was actually other Jews that, by the way of the...
you said from the beginning historical and everything. I thought you said physically.
Well, but physically it was Russians. But the reason that he was there was because there was, trouble with the Vilna Gaon. Now, what do we know about...
What is it that you're trying to underline? And I can encapsulate it.
Well, I'd like to talk about it. I'd like to talk about it a little bit. If you let me talk, then you'll be able to understand.
How long? Because there are others that want to...
It'll be quickly. We're here till midnight.
No.
I'll talk to 11:30, and then you have like a half hour left.
No, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, the idea is that there was what do we know about the Judaism that was happening during that time? It was very, very scientific, right? There was a lack of spirituality.
There was a lack of there was a lot of persecution, a lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. The masses of the Jewish people were illiterate, and they did not know. So therefore, there was a chasm, a split between the intellectuals, the Talmudic scholars,
yes,
and the masses of the Jewish people who,
the Hasidim. There was
not just the Hasidim.
Yes.
All Jews.
What he's trying to say is that the Vilna Gaon himself didn't agree with the Misnagdim. He agreed with them on paper, mainly because of what they told him. Not
right, he wasn't given the proper information.
Here, the Vilna Gaon, you can relate to.
But anyway, go ahead.
The Vilna Gaon, if you look at like the way that his brain operates, this was a person who was incredibly detailed, right? He was not kind of like a...
I don't know. The Vilna Gaon was a great Gaon in Talmudic, and even he's known as the Gra, right? Rebbe Eliyahu, in Kabbalah also.
So what I'm trying to relate is the difference in the philosophies of the Judaism that was occurring historically up until that time, and then the seismic shift that occurred with the beginnings of the movement with the Alter Rebbe, and then how after he came out of the prison, and now how Chabad and Hasidism has really just grown so much in the world. What was missing in that time in Judaism that was able to become so much spread out with the Alter Rebbe coming out of prison?
Okay,
what was
let
that?
me address
what was that
to you.
The personality of the Alter Rebbe.
Well, it wasn't just that. The Alter Rebbe had tremendous and great knowledge since he originally was a Litvak. He was a great Talmudic scholar. And when he came to the Maggid of Mizrich, he came there and he said why? Why did he come there? Because he said, I know how to learn and Talmud and everything, but I want to know how to serve Hashem, how to daven with warmth, with chayas. How does this accomplish? And that is part of what the Hasidic movement is known for, besides the greatness of Talmudic scholarship that is found within the Hasidic movement also. But the reality is that what brought about then this tremendous explosion of growth were the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov as they were expressed through the Maggid of Mizrich and through the Alter Rebbe. But the Alter Rebbe added a dimension that was not there till then. The Alter Rebbe, because of his genius, wrote hundreds, thousands of discourses and gave, that is why the name Chabad is an abbreviation for Chachma, Bina, and Dat, which is the intellectual capacities of a person. But besides just engaging the intellectual capacities of a person, of a Jew, it also encapsulates the concept of serving Hashem through tefillah, through avoda, with simcha, with joy. That was what the Baal Shem Tov underlined. And that is something that all Jews can do. Everyone can sing. Everyone can dance. To serve Hashem with love and with joy, as it says, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Serve Hashem with joy. And that is what was encapsulated into the teachings of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya and the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch, that there has to be also, Shulchan Aruch Harav, there has to be the physical lifestyle of a Jew through the mitzvahs that are expressed in the Shulchan Aruch. And this ultimately has expanded outward to affect the whole world. And it's not just, if you look carefully at the letter, to the Jewish people, it's the whole world. Jew and non-Jew is affected because the Torah speaks to all humans. All humans have responsibilities to fulfill the mitzvahs that apply to them, Jew and non-Jew alike. And therefore, that is the way to ultimately bring us to the ultimate redemption, the Geula Shlema al Yedei Mashiach Tzidkenu. And that is ultimately what is going to happen. We are now in a time of great, you could say, trial and tribulation, of being squeezed. The world is being squeezed. There is war, there's concern about health, a pandemic, there is about food shortages, all kinds of things, and nuclear holocaust, God forbid. All these things are in play right now in the headlines. And there is no real leadership. There's like a split everywhere in the world. Whether it's in America, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Russia, or in Europe, everywhere. Okay. And that is, God willing, going to ultimately stop with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, because the darkness is always the darkest right before the dawn. And we know that the key ingredient to bringing this about is unity, as the Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe expressed in his letters. Shalom, shalom, shalom. And if there is shalom, then it's a kli for all the brachas. And achdus. And especially amongst those that are based on the concept of Ahavta l'reacha kamecha, that the Alter Rebbe said specifically to put in his siddur, that before you stand to daven, you have to say Ahavta l'reacha kamecha, hareini mikabel alai mitzvah saseh, a positive commandment of Ahavta l'reacha kamecha. And the only way how you can bring that about, a physical and an actual redemption, is through a physical and actual achdus and shalom, and above all, unity of the Jewish people. Unity. L'chaim v'levracha. The Eibishter should help. That we shouldn't just think about it. We shouldn't just speak about it. But we should actually practice it. As the Alter Rebbe says, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamecha ki karev elecha hadava ma'ed beficha." Start with your mouth, bilvavcha, with your love, la'aseisa, to do. And this is what the Rebbe ultimately underlined, and this is what the Alter Rebbe ultimately expressed: that the love of a Jew to his fellow Jew will ultimately bring the Geula Shlema. The Rebbe, in some of his siches, at one point said, "I don't know, I've done everything that I can, and yet we are still in Golus." The only answer is, the greatest kli is the vessel of shalom. If we have shalom, and especially amongst those who are supposed to be the conveyors of shalom, who are known as luba, 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 love, 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 which the Baal Shem Tov founded, and that's what it became, that little village. And if we bring it down Lamaisa B'Payil, that we will go ahead and sit together, so that we eat together, then there will be the Achdus of Am Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our Father in heaven, won't want to run away from a tumult. Which parent wants to be in a house or a room where his kids are fighting? They can't handle it. It's a terrible thing. So what does he want from us? And he's waiting. He is waiting until there will be Achdus, until we will sit together at one kinnus. Then there will be the Inyan of Meisha Emes, the Teiras Emes, and there will be the Yehuda, the praising of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a united voice, and that will bring the Geula Shlema Mamish, without any question. We won't have to try and figure out this, that, or the other. The bottom line is it has to be Ba'achdus kapara taplacha. It means physically. May we merit to see that happen in our days. I just want to express what the Rebbe wrote in his special telegram for Yutes Kislev. By the grace of God, this year, Yutes Kislev is exactly the way it was when this whole story happened.
Okay.
It was on a Tuesday. Tuesday is Yom Shehuchtel Be'Kitayv, a double measure of good. Tayv l'shamayim. The heavens need Tayv also, because the way a Jew is down here is the way it is up there. And then there is the Inyan of Tayv Labrius. It's good for the creation, for us physically. We won't have to be going into quarantine. We won't have to be worried about sitting and separated. We will be able to go and say that we are all united to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is physically. That is Tayv, which is on Tuesday. And then there is the concept of Chai, from Tuesday of the 17th. There is Tayv, good, that's the numerical value. Then there is the Inyan of Chai. If it's good amongst you all, then it will be Tayv, it'll be good, and it'll be Chayus, and we'll all be healthy and well. And then we will merit from that to Yutes Kislev, the ultimate Geula Shlema.
Okay.
So I just want to complete the Rebbe's little letter here. So Chai means to be alive, and on the 19th of the month, Yutes Kislev, may we be inscribed that we say B'Shana Teva Tekasiv V'Sachasem B'Darkei Hachsidus, the ways of Chassidus, in the ways of kindness, in the ways that Chassidus teaches us to be. And this includes to go ahead and reach out to every Jew, wherever it is that you may meet him or bump into him or her, in deeds of kindness and in tefillah, prayer. An additional emphasis on above is granted this particular year because it's on Tuesday, and Tuesday brings Tov LaShamayim and Tov LaBriut.
Okay.
May we merit to see it physically in our days. May we be successful in the above mission, as the Rebbe said, that wherever you go, you are in the neighborhood because HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought you here. Why were you brought here? To be able to be mesaken and to fix what is your mission in life. As it's brought down, Vayivga Yaakov B'Makim, that he was affected there, you could say. The Makim is the place where you are put by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. May we all be successful with the coming of Mashiach, David HaMelech, the Anointed One. May the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu of God be upon all of us and establish the work of our hands. As our sages say, may it dwell in the work of our hands, that we should be successful in building the shuls, building the Batei Chabads, buying the Batei Chabads. It is totally in our hands. And if we realize this, that when we go ahead and do this, we will also merit to build the third Beis Hamikdash Mamish B'mkaima in its place, Eretz HaKodesh, Eretz Yisrael. L'chaim v'lebracha. Barikay Zilachem bracha, ad bli dai, ad bli dai, ad bli dai, 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 dai.